traveling to exotic places. You can imagine the wild tribes of Africa or a tour of Antarctica, but I'm talking about places where humans have not yet set foot, literally. I'm talking about the planets of the solar system. Perhaps in a few decades, the dream of space tourism will become a reality. But in the meantime, let's just imagine how it would be.
The first stop is the planet closest to the Earth.
You may remember from your astronomy lessons that the distance between planets is calculated by their distance from the Sun. From our star to the Earth is considered to be 1 astronomical unit. Venus is about 0.72 astronomical units from the Sun. A difference of 0.28 units suggests that it's the closest planet to the Earth. However, these calculations refer to the distance between each planet's orbit. After all, the planets don't just sit in one place, but instead move in orbits at different speeds. And if, for example, Venus and the Earth are on opposite sides of the Sun, then the distance between them increases. So, in such a case, Venus ceases to be the planet closest to us. Scientists have calculated the average distance between all of the planets and found that most often,
Mercury is closer to the Earth, so we'll go there first.
Mercury, it's the closest planet to the Sun and the smallest in the solar system. It's almost 1/3 the size of our planet. If you imagine the Earth as a baseball, then Mercury would be a golf ball. But little Mercury is also the fastest of all the planets. It makes a revolution around the Sun in 88 Earth days. Due to its proximity to the Sun and its weak magnetic field, a solar wind rages here. Of course, you don't expect to see ice on the planet closest to the Sun, but it is here, in craters at the poles. Scientists suggest that at the high temperatures on the surface of the planet, water and hydrogen are released from certain chemicals and fall into the deep pockets of the craters, where they freeze.
And now, it's time for Venus.
This is the second planet from the Sun. Its average distance from our star is 108 million kilometers, or about 67 million miles. Venus is the most unhurried of all the planets. One day here takes about 243 Earth days. At the same time, the upper atmosphere of the planet rotates almost 60 times faster. Astronomers haven't yet found an exact explanation for this difference. According to one hypothesis, convection flows are to blame. Since Venus rotates slowly, its dense atmosphere on the sunny side is quite hot. These hot atmospheric masses tend to mix with the cold masses on the shady side, which is probably why such powerful movements arise in the atmosphere. Venus is also completely shrouded in dense clouds. Science fiction writers hoped that oceans were hiding beneath them and that the planet itself was habitable. However, with the advent of spacecraft, they were disappointed. Under the clouds, there's a true hell. The dense atmosphere of Venus is 96% carbon dioxide, with an average surface temperature of 470 degrees Celsius, or about 880 Fahrenheit. And those same clouds consist entirely of sulfur dioxide with drops of sulfuric acid. The landscape on Venus is also quite apocalyptic. Frozen lava, chains of high mountains, and thousands of volcanoes. Scientists suggest that about 3 billion years ago, life could have existed on Venus. But about 750 million years ago, something caused a powerful release of carbon dioxide stored in silicate rocks into the atmosphere. This led to a runaway greenhouse effect and the resulting heat, which now reigns over the planet, capable of melting even lead.
Our next stop is Mars.
This is the fourth planet from the Sun. It's on average 228 million kilometers, or about 142 million miles from our star. Mars is almost half the size of the Earth, which many of you are probably aware of. A day here lasts 24 hours and 39 minutes, and Mars is often called two-faced because the terrain in the north and in the south of the planet varies greatly. At the poles of the planet are ice caps similar to on Earth. On Mars, you can see the largest volcano in the solar system, Olympus Mons, which is roughly 25 kilometers or 16 miles high. That's 3 times higher than Mount Everest. Mars' other attractions include a famous face. It was discovered in 1976 in photographs of Mars' surface taken by the Viking 1 spacecraft. It later turned out that it was just a plateau, and the outlines were an optical illusion caused by shadows. But this image was enough for some people to theorize that there was once a civilization similar to ours on Mars. Today, scientists have no doubt that there was once liquid water there. They found channels that appeared to be dried up riverbeds. And in 2003, under the surface of Mars, scientists discovered an entire frozen sea. We've now seen all of the planets of the rocky Earth-type group.
Ahead of us now are the gas giants. Our next stop is Jupiter, the fifth planet from the Sun.
The distance between these two is 779 million kilometers, or 484 million miles. Jupiter is the largest planet in the entire solar system. To understand just how large Jupiter is, imagine its mass is 2.4 times the mass of every other planet in the solar system combined.
Unfortunately, we can't land on Jupiter because it doesn't have a solid surface. Therefore, we'll observe it from the side.
The first thing that catches your eye is the giant longitudinal stripes on its surface. Unfortunately, astronomers have no exact explanation for this. Bands form due to the different chemical composition of its gases, atmospheric winds, and convection. According to another theory, the bands arose due to the influence of the planet's moons. Jupiter has 79 of them. Interestingly, for several centuries, a huge vortex has been raging on the surface of Jupiter, the largest within the solar system. It's called the Great Red Spot. The storm is so large that it would completely engulf the Earth.
Now, we fly further away from the Sun, and at a distance of 1.4 billion kilometers, or 891 million miles, we arrive at Saturn.
This is the second largest planet in the solar system. What's more, it's 95 times heavier than the Earth. Sometimes, super powerful hurricanes sweep over Saturn. During storms, we can see lightning discharges. And of course, Saturn is famous for its rings. Their diameter is estimated at 250,000 kilometers, or about 155,000 miles. Moreover, they're quite thin. Their width doesn't exceed 1 kilometer, or about 0.6 miles. 93% of the makeup of the rings are ice. The remaining 7% is carbon. In 1921, news broke that Saturn had lost its rings and that their particles had scattered throughout the galaxy and were headed for the Earth. In fact, the sides of the rings facing observers had simply shifted, making it impossible to detect them in that position with the instruments of that time. However, by the standards of the universe, there really isn't much time left to admire these rings, less than 100 million years. At that time, according to scientists, Saturn will devour them.
Now, get ready for a long flight. Our next stop will be 2.9 billion kilometers, or 1.8 billion miles from the Sun, Uranus.
The third largest planet in the solar system. Its mass is 14.5 times greater than the Earth's. A day on Uranus lasts 17 hours, and a year lasts for 84 Earth years. Like the other big planets we previously stopped at, Uranus is a gas giant, but it might well be called an ice giant. This is the coldest planet in the solar system. In addition to hydrogen and helium, Uranus' atmosphere also contains methane, which gives the planet its blue-green color.
And now, the final stop on our tour, Neptune.
Its distance from the Sun is 4.55 billion kilometers, or 2.8 billion miles. The strongest winds of all the planets in the solar system blow through Neptune's atmosphere. They reach supersonic speeds, up to 2,100 kilometers, or 1,300 miles an hour. Fascinatingly, here you can witness a unique phenomenon, diamond rain. Scientists suggest that on planets like Uranus and Neptune, under ultra-high temperatures and pressures, hydrogen and carbon turn into diamonds. And just like rain on Earth, this diamond rain on these planets falls from the sky. Many of you would perhaps like to continue our journey on to Pluto, but unfortunately, in August 2006, this planet ceased to exist. I mean, as a planet of the solar system, it was downgraded and moved to the list of dwarf planets. Realistically, it's worth recognizing that a space tour of the solar system would be very difficult to carry out. Conditions are simply too hostile for either people or our equipment. For example, none of our human-made devices have worked in the infernal heat of Venus for longer than 120